The next option I want to talk about in the Q menu is C-sharpen. This C-sharpen is different from the sharpen that we were talking about previously, where you can control click and it will perform the modifier applying portion of C-sharpen. This one's actually Classic C-sharpen, which is a version that would actually put a bevel modifier on the object and was a form of mesh progression. This mesh at this current time doesn't have any modifiers applied. If we look at the stack over here, we have 4 different booleans. But if we go here and we perform a sharpen, we see that it sharpens the cube, but it doesn't actually calculate any of the booleans that we put in here. And for that reason, you can just go to C-sharpen and it will actually sharpen the object and it will calculate all the sharp mark information. And this was like the primary system that we used when we were in 2.79. It was nice because you would be able to say, reuse your booleans afterwards, and we could cut this in here. Right now it's actually still live, so we can get things configured exactly as we want. But then if we want to apply it, we can just go in here and just use C-sharpen to apply it and then reuse it in a completely different area. So it's just a way of working. However, now we find that we're able to get quite far non-destructively with such studies. And that's really where, C# kind of ended. When it comes to C#, I do recommend using the newer version because for one, it's faster, and for two, the workflow of adding a bevel is something that should be done via the bevel option itself, which is why sharpen is here and then bevel is immediately right afterwards. It's because we wanted to break these two up, allowing us to expand on bevel without all the baggage of sharpen and the ideology of sharpen. It was getting strange having to modify sharpen to basically modify how we would bevel our objects, but C-sharpen still exists as a classic, and we see that in its notification it's very simple. It doesn't do anything special. But if we go over to this object next to it, we can talk about the new C-sharpen, which is part of sharpen. Basically, in order to use it, all you have to do is just control click sharpen. That's a bit of a tongue twister. But if we look at this shape, there's no sharpening that's being done. And just like I was saying previously, if we were to run sharpen, it would calculate it on the cube, but it wouldn't calculate it on the markings. So we could just control click sharpen, and notice that this version of C# is also able to remove cutters as well. The older version didn't get that functionality as an improvement. We just kind of left it off on the classic version for those users who are going through the legacy content and really want to use old school C-sharpen. But the current version of C-sharpen I definitely can recommend for a plethora of reasons. For one, it's faster, the code's a lot cleaner, the F9 is more expansive, and you even have an option to add a bevel modifier if you're wanting to go that classic route. So for the most part, this one is better in every way, and it's more fully integrated with our sharpening system versus being a completely separate operator. Another way to show this in action is we'll undo and we'll go back to the point where we have our cubes. And let's say that we wanted to make some modifications to this. And that's our shape so far. Had a bit of a mishap there. And we go through, we perform a sharpen on this, but we don't want to delete everything. So we go in our helper and we turn off C# remove cutters. So we can run a C#. It's now C-sharpen. We're able to take this piece, move it down, reuse it. We can control click it to add a different level to it. But if we were to C-sharpen it at this point with multiple bevels in place, things are going to get a little bit confusing. What happened is that all the modifiers got applied, so everything's flattened to the first level, but we still have the second bevel. And what this means is that if we go and do another cut, we are now cutting on this separate but larger level. So I will actually give this a fighting chance by making the first bevel larger and maybe give it a profile of 0.5 to be more visible. And then we can actually give this one a slightly bigger profile, and we could just keep working. So I'll select this. We run C-sharpen, we see that things went a little bit disastrously there. This is where weight would come in. Like if I wanted to actually have absolute control over the bevel influence that this area has with this one on the same modifier, that's where bevel weight would come in. But I just wanted to show some of the differences between Csharpen Classic and the new version of Csharpen, just in a nutshell, for how you can just use it to just quickly get in here and just apply your modifiers. And for, let's say I wanted to actually fix this, just to end this video on a happy note. First, we'll remove this modifier. Actually, that looks pretty good. But we could actually go under bevel, the modifier, and just press L to change this limit method to weight, which is of course going to work because we marked everything with weight according to our sharpen settings. So we can actually select this area, isolate it like so. And this is where you can actually go in and just alt click mark to use bevel weight. And inside of bevel weight, there's actually the ability to press Ctrl A to select all bevel weight. So we'll just lower this down to something like maybe 0.3, and then we tab out, we see that we can actually raise the bevel of the whole area, but we see that it also gets a little bit troublesome in these corner areas. So that's something that you will need to watch out for.